If you've ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix, or have anything true and scary you'd like to send my way, just go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. As always, in desperate need of glitch stories, paranormal stories, stranger and stalker stories, or really anything scary, so just consider it. And of course, thank you. I believe what I experienced was more like a flicker in the Matrix. I say it's a flicker because it was almost like I was flipping back and forth between parallel realities or something like that. The whole day started off when my alarm goes off at 4 a.m. I turn off the alarm, swing my legs over the side of the bed, and immediately snap my fingers, signaling my dogs to come with me to go outside. When I returned to our room, I was stunned to see my wife sleeping in our bed. The reason I was surprised is because my wife was working the graveyard shift at the hospital. I'm 1,000% sure that she was working that night because I distinctly remember staying up late to text her, and she was not in bed when I fell asleep. I think she heard me moving around and woke up. I asked her if she left work early for some reason. She just stares blankly and says, "Babe, I was home with you all night last night." Freaking weird, obviously, but I'm still half asleep and need to get to work, so I shrug it off. Maybe I just misremembered. I was running late for work, so I'm zooming and get to work and immediately jump out and hustle to the door, only to find the door locked. I proceeded to try every single door and they were all locked. I finally started to look around and I noticed that there were barely any cars. I call my boss and ask if we were closed for some reason, when he picks up and he says, "What are you talking about? You know we don't open until 5:30. I'm like, "Yeah, exactly, it's 5:30. Where is everyone?" He's like, "Look at your phone. It's 4:30. And when I look, he's correct. I'm positive that my alarm said 4 a.m. when I woke up. It uses geolocation to give you the right time zone, so I definitely didn't change it. So, what the hell? I don't have time to go all the way back home and all the way back, so I just recline in my car and wait. Once we finally open up, I bring my thermos of coffee, go inside, and get my assignment from my supervisor. I drop my coffee stuff at the workstation and realize I need to run back out to my car for headphones and chargers. I go grab my cables, specifically making sure I had both the black one and the white one since I needed both. I started walking back towards the building, and I don't get 10 feet from my car when I look down at the cords in my hand and realize I don't have the black one. I turn back to my car and walk the exact same path, checking the ground for figuring that I dropped it. It's nowhere to be found. I start shining my flashlight under cars and searching inside my own vehicle, and still nothing. I was really freaking bothered and annoyed by it, so I started searching the entire lot in expanding circular patterns. Absolutely nothing. Rationally, it can only be in 3 places: inside my car, around or under my car, or in the 10-step path that I took before turning around. There was nobody even near me or my car that might have picked it up. No animals or anything to run off with it. I never heard anything, and there was no wind. Like I said, I literally only walked 10 steps from my car. There is no rational explanation. It just literally vanished into the ether when I turned around. This happened a few months ago, and I still check the lot every morning to see if it's reemerged. Nothing so far. And, lastly, after I finally went back inside, I got a call from my wife. That was weird because she was sleeping when I left. I pick up and ask if anything is wrong. She says no, but then says that she's on her way home from work and wanted to call me to keep herself awake on the drive home. I'm like, what? I just saw you sleeping in our bed when I left. And she has no clue what I'm talking about. I legit thought that I was losing my mind. This glitch happened about several years ago where I live in Central Texas. Almost every Sunday after church, my family would eat at TGI Fridays. On one of these Sundays, we happened to see our friend Jesse, who sometimes attended our church, sitting at the bar and eating. We tried to get his attention by calling out to him, but it was his friend sitting next to him that finally nudged him and told him we were calling him. Jesse started walking over to us, and it was only when he was about 20 feet away that I realized it wasn't actually him. I mean, it could have been his twin, because he had to be so close for me to see that it wasn't exactly him. Of course, I was very embarrassed and I apologized, telling him that he looked so much like our friend Jesse. For the record, Jesse has his own look. Tall, thin, broad shoulders, a widow's peak, and the guy was even wearing a green and white striped shirt, such that our friend often wore. But that's not the weirdest part. The weirdest part is this. He was especially confused because, as he had said, my name is Jesse. Another strange event happened sometime later at that very same TGI Fridays. I spotted a hostess that I immediately and excitedly began to wave to. She'd been a friend, or at least a good acquaintance, with whom I'd hit it off. But she didn't notice me, so I stopped waving. And then I realized I couldn't really tell how I knew her. I didn't know her name, I didn't recall having ever met her, but for some reason, my initial glimpse of her brought out that reaction. Well, it turned out that she was a server, not a hostess, and she ended up being our server. I wasn't going to pretend that I knew her anymore and make a fool of myself, so I sat patiently while she took our drink orders. She took my dad's drink order first, and then she turned to me. Her eyes immediately got huge, and she said, "I know you. How do I know you?" She had the very same intense reaction that I'd had to seeing her earlier. But when we went over every possible way that we could have met, there was no way that our paths had crossed. We covered all bases. We did end up becoming Facebook friends that day, just from having felt such a strong connection. I started joking with friends about there being something mystical at this particular TGI Fridays. Because of this double Jesse incident, I started calling it Doppelganger Fridays. My BFF and I went there one night specifically, just to see if we could spot anyone else's doppelganger. Before I even got there, my BFF immediately saw a coworker of ours with his wife and kids. It took her a bit to realize it wasn't him, but it looked just like him. Red hair, sunglasses on his head, and his two boys were that same age that our coworkers' kids are. And it's not quite as strange as our other two stories, I guess, but I still wonder about this particular restaurant. Last weekend, my family and I stayed in a house at the coast to celebrate my mother's 70th birthday. We arrived Friday evening and decided to go out to breakfast Saturday morning. The restaurant we chose was a Grateful Dead-themed restaurant called Grateful Bread. My husband and I have been there a few times and love their delicious menu. Since we were a party of 7, we were split up between 2 tables. I sat at a table with my husband and father, while my son, mother, sister, and her boyfriend sat at another. My husband and I sat facing the bakery counter and whiteboard with the daily specials written on it. Written on the board was the quiche of the day, which was a spinach, ham, broccoli, and cheddar quiche. It sounded great, so I ordered it. When the quiche arrived, the top was completely covered in layers of cheddar. It was delicious. Nice chunks of ham and large steamy broccoli bits. As I was eating, my husband said casually, "Hey, looks like you got the last piece of the quiche." I looked up and see the waitress erasing the quiche from the whiteboard. She then wrote in another quiche, which was a mushroom, onion, and zucchini option. I told my husband that I was happy that we came early enough because I would not have ordered that. I don't like mushrooms or zucchinis. I go back to eating, and as I load up my fork, I realize there's no longer cheese on the top of my slice of quiche, and it's filled with mushrooms and zucchini. Wait, what just happened? I asked my husband, showing him my food. He was dumbfounded. My husband is the type of guy you see in horror movies that is always trying to convince his wife that the obviously haunted house is just old and creaky. He's very practical, and even he claimed that this must have been a glitch. When I showed my dad, he just made a joke about triply Grateful Dead. When we left the restaurant and I told the rest of my family, they tried to explain it away. My sister said the quiche must have been half and half. The only problem with that logic is the way the food was split up. Mushrooms in the back, broccoli in the front of the slice. And what happened to the cheese? Maybe I'm overthinking it, but it was extremely strange. What do you think? I'm not sure if I'm imagining things, or if I'm going crazy, but I believe that I just saw my future. I mean, I always wondered if people have their future selves walking around in the present, and I sometimes wonder if my future self is around too. But I think I should tell you the story now. I was just on my way home from work. I'm currently doing an apprenticeship as a metal worker, and due to some unlucky circumstances, I missed my tram and had to take the later one. When I took the next tram, I took a seat near the door, noticing a man on the opposite side of the door. I didn't pay him much attention at first, but then I noticed something. On his workwear, I could read the first initial of his first name and his full last name. That was when I realized that he had the same last name as me, while his first name also started with the same initial as my first name. After realizing that, I took a more exact look at him, and he did look quite similar to me. He had the same hair color, the same eye color, had a similar, if not the same, hairstyle that I normally have. My hair is currently longer, but normally I have it rather short. And even his face did look kind of similar to mine. The only real difference was that he was a bit thinner than I currently am. Of course, he was a bit older, but still, the physical similarities were there. And since I already mentioned his workwear, he was wearing blue overalls, looking similar to the ones that I was wearing. Although, I was wearing black overalls. But it was the same workwear that you would expect a metalworker to wear to work. It didn't stop there, though. He was apparently working for a craftsman company that also seems to have focused on electrical engineering. This also caused me to believe that this man could be my future self, simply because I was planning on investing 2 more years at my local Academy of Technology in order to become a state-certified technician. And while I'm currently working on becoming a metal worker, I'm also open to becoming an electrical engineer, especially if my salary is a higher one then. The man apparently even lives in a part of my town where I always wanted to live, due to the close proximity to our local botanical garden. So, yeah. I'm not sure if my mind is playing tricks on me or if I'm just going crazy, or if I actually saw my future self there. But I definitely wanted to share this story. I just found out about this page via a YouTube video that reminded me of this weird event that happened to me a couple of years ago. I was driving on the highway, going down the main hill in my city. Super snowy, nighttime. There's a train bridge that's above the highway that I'm approaching. Also, I'm in the left lane of 2 lanes. All of a sudden, I hit ice and start swerving and then spinning down the hill. I do 3 180-degree rotations diagonally into the right lane. After the first 180, I clock a white car in the right lane and remember thinking, man, I hope they don't hit me. I hope they get into the other lane. By the way, time really does slow down in accidents like this. I had enough time to think of a plan and diagram the situation out in my head and protect myself. Everything. Because I noticed that I was going to hit the guardrail next to the cement holding up the train bridge. After another 360 spin, the car in the right lane is still in the right lane and is ever closer. And I don't have enough room to spin again. There's about a foot left before I crash. I remember thinking, is this guardrail gonna smash my window? And so I decided to just huddle into a ball and brace for impact. I also pulled my hood more over to the side of my face, in case the glass shattered at my face. And I squeezed my eyes closed. 10 seconds go by, 20 more. I'm not sure how long, but I peeked one eye open because nothing was happening. I should have opened my eyes to a car headlight coming at me. But instead, my car is in P for park. I'm in my own lane, the left lane, and my car is facing forwards. In park. The car supposed to hit me had passed me. It was a huge WTF moment for me. I kind of assumed it was guardian spirits or angels these past couple of years, but I do love simulation theory as well, as I'm not religious. But it just never crossed my mind that this was a glitch, until I watched that YouTube video. The day it happened, nothing was out of the ordinary or different. I went to my 8 to 5 job like any other day, and it wasn't until I got to the grocery store after work when things got strange. I went to my local grocery store, but it felt off. I usually see the same people, but that day was different. I saw people that I've never seen before, and even the workers were some that I've never seen. When I was picking out items, some seemed to be in another language, but I assumed it was a brand change. Then I went to check out, and the woman cashier started to speak to me. Whatever she was speaking, it was not English or Spanish, the only 2 languages that I know. I started to speak to her to tell her that I didn't understand, but I started talking back to her in that language. It honestly felt like I was looking at the situation from outside my body, like I was just the soul inside and the body was talking for me. We carried a conversation for about 5 minutes, until I was all checked out. When I walked back to my car, I sat there for a solid 10 minutes before driving off. I told my partner who I lived with at the time, and they told me to stay away from the internet and laughed at me. I went back to that store 2 days later, and I saw the people I knew. The workers were the ones that I knew. The brands had their regular names on them. This happened a little over a year ago, and that memory still haunts me every day. Some people tell me that it was probably a dream that just felt like real life, but I know what I saw and what I felt. This was not a dream. No one believes me, no matter how many details I give. So, quick background. I'm female, a preschool teacher, and I have 2 co-teachers with me in the same room. Each of our kids has their own hook to hang their backpacks on, labeled with their name. One day I was taking pictures of each kid doing a specific task, which happened to be next to the backpack hooks. We have to be careful to not have any identifying things in the background. Other children's faces, certain names, that kind of thing, because we send pictures to their families. I took one picture of a student, let's call him Caleb. I was looking at the background and I noticed that his name/hook was in his picture, which I thought was a pretty cute coincidence. Now, Caleb's hook is next to another student's. Let's call her Steph. The next week, I'm looking at the hooks, and I say to my co-teacher, "Hey, did you switch Caleb and Steph's names on the wall?" She said no, and then looked. Their names switched places, because we know for a fact that Caleb's hook was on the end, and it now isn't. And so we thought it was probably the other teacher or something. We asked the other teacher, and no. Then I remembered. Hey, I took pictures next to the hooks, I'll easily look at them to see their order. However, I looked on our iPad's picture album, and they weren't there. None of the photos I took of anyone were there. The ones before and after were still on the iPad, but not my specific ones. I even checked the recently deleted, and nope. So I went to Caleb's profile online where we send the pictures. His picture was there with the background cropped, but it was not the picture I took of him. He had a different hairstyle and clothes that he's never worn before. The picture looked like a mix between outdated and futuristic. I showed it to my co-teachers, and they were just as confused and weirded out as I was. And we still have no idea what happened. It's necessary to explain that my culture has restrained me or any member of my family that witnessed this event from ever telling anyone but our immediate family members about what happened. However, I now understand that we made a mistake. I can remember a majority of my childhood, from being put in a car seat to pulling out the pots and pans in the kitchen as a baby. I can remember my father holding me as he cooked hamburger meat, and the Happy Meal toys my older brothers received. So, when I was 3 years old, I drowned in my uncle's pool after chasing a ball. My grandfather asked my brothers and I if we knew how to swim. He asked, jokingly, when we first arrived at my uncle's house. But being a child, I thought that I could, having seen it done on television. Anyway, I would carry my favorite toy around with me, and later that day, while I was playing in the hot tub, it slipped from my hand and fell to the bottom of the tub. My cousin, 2 older brothers, and I were standing on the seat of the tub when it fell, and the heat and bubbles prevented me from being able to put my head underwater. I asked my cousin to get it for me, but he ignored me. So I assumed that he was intentionally ignoring me in order to steal my action figure. Therefore, once we left the hot tub, I was determined not to leave his house empty-handed, and I decided to take his ball as recompense for my G.I. Joe. I ended up kicking it as I ran towards it, and it bounced away from me towards the pool. And chasing after it, I fell into the pool and drowned. I've been able to lucid dream and astral project ever since, but because I was so young, I thought that was normal. I have night terrors accordingly. But one night, when I was a little older in Long Beach by the border of Compton, where the Big Donut is, my grandparents, mother, and 2 older brothers were driving home, stopped at a stop sign, when I thought I saw the moon behind the trees. I suddenly noticed that the moon was actually behind a house. I was used to seeing this from my dreams, but at this point I was in a station wagon. I looked harder at what I thought was the moon, and I saw that it was really just a ball of light, until it stopped glowing. It dimmed and became a ship, silently hovering and slowly spinning in place. It was a real ship. The bottom looked like a computer motherboard with lights running towards the center of it. I told my mom, and after a moment I got them to look because they didn't believe me at first. They got really scared, and my grandmother drove away as fast as she could. But it followed us, and they got even more terrified. Someone else had to have seen it too, because we were speeding down the neighborhood as fast as we could, but we could not lose it. The car was really loud as we ran, but a voice said, "No, look at it." And I saw that it was technology. Real technology, and a real ship. And as it pursued us, my mom got scared and made us close our eyes and pray. When we opened my eyes, because my family refused to look at it, they asked me if it was still there, and it wasn't. Believe me or not, I don't care. This is what happened to us. And we've experienced other situations that could be considered hauntings, like electronic toys and equipment working on their own without any sort of power supply. Hi Raven, I'm a new subscriber and I've been binge watching your videos lately. Glitch stories are some of my favorites, so I figured I would share my own story. I moved from Texas to Tennessee in 2020. After moving into our new home and getting settled, we began to notice odd happenings. We moved into a home that was built in 1986, so it was a little bit older, but had no major issues. After moving in, we noticed a lot of odd things happening that seemed a little paranormal. Footsteps, hearing a child laughing at night, and things disappearing. The one situation that really boggled my mind was in 2021. I know it sounds silly, but I think my keys were taken to another timeline for a little while. I was getting ready to go to the store, and I went to grab my car keys from the kitchen counter, where I always left them. Except they weren't there. That's weird, I thought. And so I checked my bedroom, my purse, the couch cushions, under the couch, the bathroom, the mudroom door that I always used to get into the house, everywhere. At this point, I was panicking because I had them when I got home from work. I had to have them because I was able to get into the house. I had my whole family searching. We looked high and low. I had work the next day, so I was about to have a full-blown panic attack. After looking through and through for an hour, we gave up. Frustrated, I said out loud, "Can whoever or whatever took my keys please return them? I have an errand to run and work tomorrow, and I need my keys. Please?" I took a little time to calm my nerves and eventually decided to go into the laundry room to do some wash. As I was emptying the basket into the washing machine, there were my keys, at the very bottom of the laundry basket, buried under a bunch of dirty clothes. It's not a scary glitch when compared to other people's stories, but it definitely threw me for a loop and made me question reality for a while. How did I let myself into the house, put my keys on the kitchen counter, and then they ended up buried under days' worth of dirty clothes in the laundry room? I feel like something took them into another timeline or dimension for a little while. but at least they returned them after I asked. Gotta give them props for that. So, this happened 2 days ago. I usually take a shower before bed every night, and at this hour, my family members, which includes my husband, my daughter, and my mother-in-law, are already sound asleep. There are just 2 floors in our house. My daughter, mother-in-law, and I sleep on the first floor in different rooms, and my husband spends the entire day in his room on the first floor, but at night he sleeps in a room on the ground floor. And once he falls asleep, he never comes up to the first floor until morning. In case he needs to go to the washroom, there's one on the ground floor as well. I shower in the bathroom on the first floor. So when I was showering 2 days ago, I heard the sound of my husband clearing his throat. He has a throat infection and thus a very distinct sound of clearing his throat. Moreover, he's the only guy in the household. And the sound came from the first floor. In fact, it came from right outside the bathroom, which I was in. I called out his name, but I didn't get any reply. The next day, I asked my husband if he'd come upstairs when I was in the shower. He casually said no, and it didn't look like he was trying to scare me or anything. So, I have no idea who I heard that night. Earlier today, my significant other was having difficulties setting up and using a new tablet. I attempted to help, and began running into the same issues with the setup. The setup program kept telling us to insert the SIM, but it was inserted. After fiddling with it for several minutes, I realized the SIM tray is designed with 2 SIM slots, but the way the 2 are designed, it's not easily recognizable. So I began switching the SIM card over to the other slot in the tray, and shifted a little into better lighting to make sure I was getting the edges into the tray correctly. As I did, both the SIM and the tray flipped out of my fingers. The tray landed on the bed beside me while I watched the SIM card hit the floor and bounce under my nightstand. I got up, moved the nightstand, and found absolutely nothing. For 15 minutes, my SO and I looked under the bed, pillows, blankets, both nightstands, etc., and the SIM card was just gone. It had glitched out of existence. I finally even spoke that truth aloud, and we both gave up the search. Mind you, we just recently moved in here, and there is little in our room as we just finished painting and putting new flooring in. We haven't even started moving our clothes into the bedroom yet. Leaving the room, we both go work in the kitchen for a few hours painting and installing new cabinets and counters. Stopping to take a break, we both walk into the bedroom together when my SO, who was walking in front of me, stops suddenly exclaiming, "There it is." Confused, I ask, "There what is?" To which my SO just pointed to the floor at the large open space between the foot of our bed and the dresser. The white SIM card had reappeared, in an area opposite of the direction we had both seen it go earlier, and in an area that we both had traversed several times looking for it earlier, and in an area where the white SIM card showed up very easily and noticeably against the charcoal gray coloring of the new flooring. My SO says, "There's no way that was there earlier." And I just shrug, replying, "Well, just be grateful it glitched back and we don't have to buy another one. I hope you had your fun on your little vacay out of our reality, little SIM card. Now, just please work like you're supposed to, without issues." And that, my friends, was This week's collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories, a collection of stories that are weird, bizarre, strange, odd, awkward, kind of creepy sometimes, but not necessarily scary. And stories where you hear them and think, wow, that is strange, and if it happened to me, I would probably have a minor panic attack. At least some of these. Oh, I just hit my keyboard. That's what that noise was. Had my hand down in front of me, and I lifted it, because I talk with my hands sometimes, and I decided to just smack my keyboard up off my desk. So, there's that. Stories that make you smack your keyboard off of your desk. I'm an idiot sometimes. Anyways, hopefully you all enjoyed these stories. If you did, please do consider leaving a thumbs up on the video. I know a lot of you leave the thumbs up prior to the video, or as soon as you click it, and that means a lot. Thank you. But if you get to this point and you haven't done so and you liked the stories, please consider doing so. If you're new to the channel, you can also subscribe. That helps the channel grow, obviously. The more the channel grows, the more things get better, the more YouTube pushes the channel, and so forth and so on. Fun fact, of the views that my last Glitch in the Matrix video got, almost 41% of them were not subscribed to the channel. You can do the math from there. 41% of 6,200 views, I think. I don't know, something like that. That's a lot of people not subscribed. So, if you haven't subscribed, please do consider doing so. It does help. And it makes me feel better about what I'm doing to some extent. I don't know why, it just does. Anyways. You can also join memberships or Patreon. We get early access to content like this, so long as it goes up early, and other things depending on what you sign up for. There's also the Super Thanks, which is just a tip to the channel. Never expected, always appreciated. The other thing you can do is participate in this week's Word of the Week. Every week I give you guys a word, and you all leave me comments. Well, some of you leave me comments with the word in a sentence or story, or just sometimes the word because y'all are cheeky like that. That's totally fine. Last week the word was meteorology. It was meteorology, yeah. I almost said meteorologist. It's meteorology. And I said I would accept variations of the word too. And on the screen now, and several moments prior to now, is a collection of all of the comments that left me that word, meteorology, or any variation of said word. All these people went above and beyond and participated, and for that they get a shout out, so a huge thank you to each and every single one of you who did. If you didn't get around to it, that's totally okay too. Just know that I never do expect anyone to do these, it's just for fun. Now, this week, the word is unfortunately ineffable. That's the word, ineffable. I-N-E-F-F-A-B-L-E. It means incapable of being expressed in words, unspeakable, / not to be uttered, taboo. It can mean both those. A good demonstration sentence. The love that I feel from all of you amazing people is absolutely ineffable. I cannot express in words how much joy, the kindness and support that you all give me makes me feel. So thank you for that. So, leave me a sentence with that word, and we're good to go. All that said, friends, I hope I do see you again here very soon, and until then, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it, and do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.